For those wanting a little bit more insight on that gearbox, that steampunk clock that I was working on in the last video, I figured I would do a longer version just on the gearbox because I spent a lot of time to get that motor working. Let's check it out. So we're going to pick this up when I disassemble the motor, and this is going to concentrate just on the motor. This motor came apart like 3 times to get it working properly, and there was a lot of work, a lot of fiddling around with the gears. The first time when I took it apart, all the gears fell out, and I had to kind of figure out where they went and what way they went in. Got it all together, and it was still acting up. Took it apart again, lubricated it some more.
One screw is screwed into plastic.
And put it back together, and it was still having some issues with it. Even operate it when it was apart. And I'll show you what I found in the end, what was causing the problem.
Apart. Without much effort, the back should just lift off of this thing.
So this is going to more or less be kind of dry because I'm going to let the camera run and show you guys all the stuff that was removed.
Little gears in here that will go flying everywhere if I'm not careful. So I'm just going to lift this off very, very carefully.
Because these are quite tedious.
Hopefully they're not plastic gears that have turned to mush.
And I've never taken one of these apart before. So this is the first time I've opened up one of these quartz-driven motors. As you can see, the first time I took it apart, I took the bottom off it, and I actually should have taken the top off. So all the gears have come off their posts, their bearings.
This gear goes on here.
So I got to kind of figure out how the thing goes together and rebuild it.
This little gear here sits next to it.
Now the problem with it is there's a damaged tooth on the gear that's attached to that motor bracket there. That gear has one tooth. Actually, there was 2 or 3 teeth, but one tooth was slightly bent. So what was happening is, as it was meshing with the gear driving it, it was adding just enough resistance that would stall the motor out. And probably this happened from someone turning the hands to set it, or turning the gear on the back, is what I think probably caused that. Anyway, I got to figure out which way the gears go and reassemble the unit. There was a couple problems that needed to be lubricated as well. As you'll see when I power it up. When I powered it up, even without any gears at all, with just the rotor was not starting up properly. But some lubrication on the bearing for the rotor solved that. Okay, that won't work because I just put the rotor on upside down. You gotta remember when I took it apart, I took the bottom off it and everything fell out. So gotta kind of figure out which way this thing goes back together. And I've never had one of these apart before, so I'm having to work out in my head the way that the gears all mesh together.
That one goes there. Okay. Like that. And then this one goes on like that. And then this piece goes on like this. So when this turns, it turns like this. The quartz coil goes on like this. This has got your quartz regulator and everything on it. So I want to make sure that it's going to turn properly, so it's going to lift this off one more time to make sure everything's going to turn smoothly. Oh, this is in the other. This is an upside down. This has to go down the other way. Otherwise, it won't get the magnetic field. That goes down this way. If we apply power to this, it should spin. It probably wouldn't hurt to oil these bearings, although they don't appear to be bad. I don't see any reason that they're not turning like they're supposed to. Oops.
If you look at the large gear there, the large one on the right next to the coil, and there's a tooth that is just a little bit bent. It's right where I'm pointing with the arrow. And I think that was what was causing the problem, as I found out the next time I take it apart.
I'm going to use some of this super lube with PTFE synthetic grease. Just on a few of these, namely the metal parts. And where the plastic metal contact gets made, just here. And power this up before putting it together and make sure that it's spinning correctly. It just takes 1.5 volts. I can dial my power supply down to 1.5 volts, no problem. See it turning now?
Now, I think I have it, but the thing is, it's not going to act up until the minute hand control
screws back in the back of this unit.
Catches up with the midway gear, and then it's going to stall. So I got it all back together, and it ran for about 15 minutes, and then started doing the same thing again. So I had to pull the motor apart again. So let's skip ahead to the motor coming apart again. We'll do some more work on the motor. And eventually, I'll find it. But a lot of time was spent taking this thing apart. Next time I take it apart, though, it's going to come apart a lot quicker than the first time. Because I say I've never taken one of these ones apart before. So it's kind of a learning experience. Now, this video is sitting on my Patreon page for a while, but it will go onto my main channel. But for my Patreons, you guys get to see this little more in-depth look at servicing this motor, because it was simple and complex at the same time.
I'm stopping it to see if it'll start back up. Go the right direction. Good. I try to make it go the other way. It'll always start up the right way, which is what we want. Okay, so let's start putting this thing back together and see if I can remember how it goes together. Ha ha ha. Well, it appears we still have a problem with the motor, because even with everything disconnected, it's still doing the same thing. So I got to pull that motor apart yet again and see why it's dancing. The motor itself seemed to be all free when I had it apart. I didn't see anything sticking, but for whatever reason it ran for about 5 to 10 minutes there, and then started doing this dance again. So it's obviously something in the motor is not right.
Now, you guys didn't see any of this on the main release. This was all eliminated during editing.
So, time to pull the motor apart yet again. As I say, now I know how the motor comes apart. I won't have to worry about the gears all falling out, because I know which gears go where. Got to figure out why it's starting up in reverse, or not starting like it's supposed to. So I know that the top will lift off, so I just push through here. It's got to be something in with the, I would think the rotor down here is probably where our fault is. But now that I've taken this thing apart, I know what gears go where, so I can easily just remove the gears and remove this little rotor here and just take a look at that, because this has got to be where the direction is selected is in here. Maybe on this spindle here. We need to put some lubricant on here, possibly. I'm just curious as to what I should use for lubricant. I'm thinking that super lube is probably the best that I can put on there, just because it's safe for plastic. I think I'll start this up this time out of the with the mechanism open. Just see what happens when I apply power to it. Oh, you see, it's not starting. It's just sitting there going back and forth.
It was probably the lubricant that was causing it to stick there, because that super lube had to be worked in well. And now it's going to spin, as you see. It's a very, very low torque motor, because you got to remember this thing's running on 1.5 volts DC, a very low current, so the batteries last for like months and months and months. Just put a little bit of conventional oil onto these ones, I think, instead of that PTFE grease. Now it's starting correctly. And now everything's going to run properly now until that gear that's got the 2 teeth that are damaged, until they go to mesh. And then it's going to increase the resistance to the point where it's going to stall the motor out. It was right around this time that I just happened to notice that tooth that was out of whack. Unfortunately, I was zoomed in close and I wasn't looking at the monitor, and I didn't catch it on camera when I actually straightened it with a screwdriver. I straightened it up. If you listen, you can hear it chattering because the bent teeth are now jamming it up. I'm going to pull it apart again, but unfortunately I was out of frame when I found the problem. So pull the motor apart, we're going to find it, put it back together, straighten the teeth, put it back together, and then test it.
Well, now that the motor's back together, I'm going to let this thing spin for a bit and just make sure that it's going to continue to spin before I put the clock all back together for the second time.
I let it run for an hour. It was still spinning. I put the clock back together, and you guys already saw the ending. Thanks for watching.